Time for another board game review, and this time we have the game Cascadia. This was sent to me by AEG and is designed by Randy Flynn. Take a journey to the Pacific Northwest as you compete to create the most harmonious ecosystem in Cascadia. Turns are simple. Select a tile/token set and place each into your expanding ecosystem. Earn points by fulfilling wildlife goals and creating the largest habitat corridors. With variable scoring goals, each game of Cascadia brings a new spatial puzzle to your table. Let me show you how to play. So in Cascadia, you are trying to score the most points by selecting habitat tiles and wildlife tokens. At the start of each turn, there will be 4 habitat tiles and 4 wildlife tokens in the center of the play area. They are arranged in 4 distinct combinations, so this pair, this pair, this pair, and this pair. Before you make a selection, you check to see if any of the wildlife are overpopulated. So, just to show you an example, let's say all 4 of them have the salmon. In that case, you automatically wipe them. And you pull new tokens from the bag. If 3 of the tokens are the same, like let's say there were 3 grizzly bears here, then you have the option to wipe the tokens. And if you don't want these bears here, you can take those 3, take them aside, draw 3 new tokens from the bag, and place them all. You can only do that once per turn. Now, once we've resolved any overpopulations, then you will now pick one of the pairs. Typically, you must take an existing combination. However, you can also spend nature tokens to do one of the following. So, these nature tokens, usually I gotta pick a pair. Like I gotta pick this or I gotta pick this. But if I have these little nature tokens, what I can do with these is I can spend them and then I can take any combination. So I could take this one and this one. Or, well, it wouldn't really make sense to because there's an eagle here, or a hawk. But anyway, I could take these 2 or something like that. You could also use that nature token to wipe any number of tokens you want. So I'd be like, I'm gonna get rid of all of them. Or I wanna get rid of these 3 and replace them. You can use as many of these nature tokens as you want, as long as you have them. If you don't have any, then you must take an existing combination. That's all how you manipulate the combinations here. But once you actually take it, let's say I take this one here. What you do is then you place this habitat tile adjacent to one of your existing tiles. So you start with one of these 3 tiles here. And this tile must touch adjacent to one of the other tiles. So I could go like that. It doesn't have to match even. I could even just do that if I wanted to. But I'm going to choose to do that, and you'll see why in a second. Then I take the token that I chose, and I have to put that on one of those spaces containing that animal. So I couldn't put it here, but I could put it here. And in fact, if I put it here, you see there's a little symbol on here for a nature token. If I put one here, that's how you get nature tokens. I collect a nature token, and I can use it on a future turn. Once you've selected your pair, then you replace with a new set, and that's it. You just go to the next player. Now, each habitat has 1 or 2 types of terrain. Some of them have just 1, like this is just a prairie tile. This one has forest and wetlands, or not wetlands, rivers, forest. This one has forest and rivers. So, you know, there are different combinations of wildlife tokens. Or, I'm sorry, there are different combinations of habitat tiles you can get. Now everyone just keeps taking turns, taking pairs, putting them on their boards, and so on until you run out of all of the habitat tiles. Once all the habitat tiles are done, then the game ends immediately and scores are tallied. And that's when you look at these cards up here. Now, the game offers you different varieties for each animal. There's about 4 for each. You can mix them up. I'm just looking at the sort of starter set here. And depending on how they are, how you scored with these, you will get a certain number of points. So for a grizzly bear here, it scores for a number of pairs of bears with no other bears next to them. So here would be an example. Here's a pair of bears. Here's a pair of bears. They're not touching any other bears. And if I had 2 pairs, that would be 11 points. The more pairs of bears you have that don't touch other bears, you get more points. The elk on this card scores lines, so you want to score as many in a straight line as possible. So if I had, let's say at the end, 3 of these elk here, that would score me 9 points. And so you go through each card and you score them that way. So for salmon, they want to run. Not necessarily a straight line, but just different salmon connected to each other. The red-tailed hawk, these hawks just can't touch other hawks. The more separate hawks you have, the more points you'll earn. The red fox is unique in that it scores for each different adjacent animal types next to it. So if you have 5 different animals surrounding that fox is worth 5 points, and you calculate each fox that way. So that's one way you score points at the end, is you go through the different animal cards and see how you scored them. Another way you can score points is you look at your largest contiguous. And then the other way you score is you look at your largest connected habitat corridor in each of the 5 habitats. So let's say I had, let's make an example here. See how this desert area has 4 here? And let's say that was the biggest connected desert area on my map. Then I would score 4 points for that area. And you do that for each of your largest connected areas. So for another example, let's say I had a 3 wetland here, but I had a 2 wetland here. Then you ignore this one, you just score this one because this is your biggest one of that type. Then on top of that, if you happen to have the biggest area of each habitat type out of all players, like let's say you have the biggest desert here and nobody else has one that big, you will get bonus points. In a 3 to 4 player game, that's a 3-point bonus to the player with the largest corridor of each type, 1 point bonus for the second largest, and then there are tiebreakers as well. And then for each player, you score 1 point for each unused nature token at the end. Finally, you tally all the points. Most points wins. If there's a tie, the nature tokens are the tiebreaker. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. You're just drafting these pairs. Each turn you take a pair, you place it down, put an animal token on a matching space, and you're just trying to think about, okay, I want to score well on the animal cards, and or I want to score big on the connected land areas, as well as trying to have the majority, and yeah, that's pretty much it. And to mix up the game a bit, you can add different ones. Like for example, this grizzly bear condition scores per group of 3 bears with no other bears. Or this elk, you want to have these in exact shapes, like that. So there's different types of scoring as well to make the game spiced up each time, but otherwise that's pretty much it. Score all the points for land and for animals, and that's the game. So, overall, this is a good game. The components are nice, the art is very pretty, it's a very just nice overall package, and the design is solid. Unfortunately, I just think I've played too many games like this, and this is a me problem, more so than a typical consumer or player problem, though. So first, let's dive into what this game does well, because it does a lot of things really well. The drafting is fun because you're basically thinking of 2 schools of thought with you want to connect the terrain ideally, but also you want to make sure you're placing the animals in the right spots and the animals have their own limited places where they can go. It is this balancing act that makes the game really shine, and it's my favorite part of the game. I genuinely enjoyed having to pick the best pairs for each turn. I think the problem is that I prefer drafting games with a little more tension. This game definitely gives me vibes of games kind of like Tiny Towns and Calico, both of which I've reviewed in the past, and I think it's kind of interesting to compare the two and talk about where Cascadia kind of lies between them. Calico is still in my collection because despite its fluffy appearance, it can be mean, and it can get very tense when you need that one tile to fit in this one perfect spot, and it just won't come out. Or someone steals it before you can grab it. Cascadia is like Tiny Towns in that it's much more lenient, and it's supposed to be relaxing, which is I get that. I get the mood that they're going for, and that's not a bad thing at all. Swapping out the animals easily is a good thing, and being able to place the tiles anywhere you want without worrying about the terrain is very convenient. But admittedly, for me, it is less exciting. I'll say this. If this is your first tile laying / drafting game like this, I think this is a very solid choice. It looks great. Good, tight design. There's nothing wrong with the game at all. It's good. In fact, I would recommend it, especially to new players, or if you've never played a game like this. This is a terrific one to add to your collection. It looks great and plays very well too. If you're looking for a relaxing puzzle game, this is a very good fit. But for me, it doesn't bring anything revolutionary to the genre, for me personally, and I tend to prefer drafting games with a little more bite and a lot more tension. But that's just me. Take that as you will. I still think overall, it's a good game. I just want a little more spice.